Hey everybody, it's Joe Trippi, and welcome back to That Trippi Show with my co-host Alex Sashlow. When we started this podcast, the idea was to talk not just about what's going on in the world of politics, but also discuss technology, where we see, our use of the internet going. And folks, it's not good, and it's getting worse. We've talked about it before on the show, but the leaps that AI has made in the past 12 months are just massive. The potential to distort reality is there. You've seen the corrosive effects of social networks like X. It's why I started says.us. It's by far the biggest threat to democracy. So when our friend Trippi Olson started a new series about how autocrats will use AI and how we can fight back, we wanted him on the show. He, quote, autocrats will use AI to erode reality, Trippi says. Democracy's defenders must use it to anchor shared truth. Welcome back, Trippi.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Joe. Alex, it's always good to be on.
So, Alex, where should we get started, buddy?
You say the title of one of Trippi's pieces, autocrats will use AI to erode reality. The one thing before we get into it, and Trippi has 7 rules I really want to talk about today that are kind of an updated 7 rules for this AI world we live in. The thing is, and I think for a useful thing for people to keep in mind, what we're talking about and what you can see has been now going on for years. Obviously, we've had some pretty significant advances, like Joe, like you said, in AI in the last year or so, but the tactics we're talking about, the type of propaganda we're talking about, and just the goals, these have always been around under the surface. This is not some new thing. It's getting worse at an alarming rate. But, Trippi, when you and I were talking about the idea for the show, I think one thing for everybody to realize is this stuff is already happening. It's not like it's around the corner. It's here.
Yeah, I think one of the stats, Trippi, that just, I don't think people really grasp, that you point out in that piece, and we put the link to your piece in the show notes, but that over 49% of all internet traffic is bot generated. Yeah. I mean, 49%. It's like people don't know. They're not arguing with a real person. They're arguing with a bot, or agreeing with a bot for all that is. But it's one of the reasons it says us that we require a valid cell phone number to sign up is that's just one small step, but it's an important one to limit and stop bots from overtaking the network, because all these other networks with their algorithms, with the bots, you're already seeing the toxicity that's happening on X, and how it's inflaming anger. But now with AI is going to just really ramp this up.
Yeah, I think there's a few things that maybe listeners would be interested in. Part of it is, you guys know this because Alex is in some ways to blame for all of this, at least with my journey into AI and taking classes and really focusing on how it impacts democracy. Because when ChatGPT first came out, we were in the process of doing a lot of survey research, and Alex said, it'd be interesting to see if you anonymized it, which it all is anyway, like what ChatGPT would say, and looking at it. And what I discovered is the early iterations of the big, large language learning models, when you put data into them, what it was really good at was calculating things and figuring things out faster, because it can just do math faster than a human can, or in my case. So it could do the math in 30 seconds that might take me 2 weeks to do in SPSS or R, and kind of glean things. But one of the things that I think people don't fully understand about AI as they know it, they think of ChatGPT or Claude or DeepSeek or whatever, the large language learning models, they're trained based off of everything that's on the internet. But at the end of the day, they're basically writing informed fiction in a lot of cases, unless they're built to be writing nonfiction with specifics. And so one of the issues that I think the more you get into the AI space that you start to grapple with is, who and how that base information and what it's based off of. Is it just AI creating more data to be processed by AI, or is it actually, in fact, being used to and trained to understand humans and the human condition, um, and actually be constructive at making humans better, having interaction with each other, not just relying on AI creating content to reinforce the worst of our instincts and telling us what we want to hear.
Gets a little bit into the lessons you start talking about. And I know you're like a little more than halfway done right now. I know you have a few more to publish, but the thing that, to the stat Joe pointed out, it's not just about the content that's created. It's about how it actually appears in front of you and what appears in front of you. Given Joe, you said basically half online traffic is bot driven now. Everything now on all our social media networks, except one, except Says Us, is extremely algorithm driven. Everything from YouTube, how creators put out their content, what they're optimized to do, it's all so algorithmically driven. A lot of it is AI, but now you're also dealing with AI creators. So these algorithms are being gamed. The content that you're looking at is the result of a win in an algorithm, or the exploitation of an algorithm. So it's not just the stuff, it's how you see it.
I've written about it in my book. I know Trippi's written about it in his pieces. Technology doesn't know who's using it. It's agnostic, right? And so the problem here is that if AI is being used to control the narrative, being used for profit, to drive consumerism, to drive you to buy things, to drive you to engage in divisive and hateful in arguments, all to sell more more eyeballs, and in doing it, basically controlling the narrative. And that's where I think when you get to the 7 lessons that Trippi talks about, there's a real need beyond the. I think there's a bigger issue here that we have to start to build our own narrative. Our AI, and I know Trippi's been working on this. AI and like Says Us, networks that don't drive, don't have algorithms driving that stuff, that actually reward civil behavior, respect, identity, privacy, and are safe places to have arguments and have, but with civility, and disagree, but find the truth together. So there's a real need, I think, for us to take some responsibility and recognize what's going on, and understand that places like Says Us, where we don't allow bots, where there's no algorithm promoting anger, hate, and that stuff. We can disagree but be civil. But it's the same thing. It's going to be much worse with AI, and that's why I think Trippi's lessons on what we can do are important for people to understand.
Trig, this is why I like this series so much from you, which is you're not just kind of pointing out the bad, you're also pointing out what we got to do to fix it. So to Joe's point, how do we use either this technology, or what do we need to do offline to start rebuilding trust?
I think it starts with, AI is here, right? So it isn't ignoring it or trying to ban it or whatever isn't going to solve the problem. We have to figure out how to use it strategically and defensively to rebuild what's being eroded and what has been eroded. And you guys, Joe, you and I were doing all kinds of international stuff, sometimes working together and not even knowing it back in the day. And when technology was first coming online, even like the mobile phone, right? Like there's the famous example in Zimbabwe where people were using telephones to take pictures of the counting at the precinct level, and that was giving a real picture of what was happening, or the use of SMS or the internet, the rise of social media. and those were heady times. People were talking about how this is going to cause democracy and freedom and personal empowerment to go everywhere. What people didn't think about is, it's the point that you were making. Technology is agnostic, and bad people. Technology is neither good or bad. Technology is used by people who are good or bad, built by people who are good or bad. And, the the idea that you would have you know, half of the traffic on X at a minimum is likely bot driven. If that's the model that you're using to train, it basically is this sort of Orwellian AI creating content for AI. And that's a business model, Mark Zuckerberg talking about, I want people to have AI friends. But that business model is based on them telling Mark Zuckerberg wants people to tell them their deepest, darkest things to their AI friends that Meta owns and then use it to sell people stuff. It doesn't have to be that model. But if AI goes down the sort of that model that social media and the internet kind of did, that is going to be really destructive to democracy. And we have to constantly be thinking, how do we use those tools strategically and defensively to defend elections, to defend speech? And there are tools out there that can do that. There are tools that can look at text that's being written. Amazon does that, to know which is bot driven customer reviews and which are real ones.
Yeah, and again, what I'm saying is we need to start to build our own social network to work against the algorithms and the bots, and where we're having real conversations with real human beings where we might disagree, trying to find facts that we can agree on and hopefully some solutions. But the other step is, I think, again, dealing with AI and what we can do to fight the direction AI is likely going. Like you said, it's already there. It's already going in this direction. So given that, what are your 7 lessons, Trippi, that will help people understand what they can do, what's going to happen here? What's AI likely to try to accomplish, and what we must do to counter it?
Yeah. So the first one is, autocrats are going to use AI to try and control the narrative in the same way that they try and use social media platforms, media. That is what they do. AI can be a tremendous tool in rebuilding trust between people. And one of the points, you and I make, I think, consistently, Joe, is that from what we've seen around the world, in the battle for democracy we're in the US, it's not going to be first decided at the ballot box. It is going to first be decided around kitchen tables and close group relationships. People having a few beers in bars and not being afraid to speak up and being able to understand how they convince people to trust in each other, because autocrats want us to fear each other. The second one is, they're going to use AI to target dissent. We have to use it to protect freedom of expression. Signal is an example of that, in the sense, in some of the encrypted technologies. In some places in the world, those give people the opportunity to conduct free speech, to actually say what they can't say out loud within their country. AI can be used to protect that. They're going to use AI to engineer division. We can use it to strengthen solidarity. They're going to try and erode reality. We can use it to anchor in shared truth if people are willing to build it that way. They're going to use it to undermine elections. We can use it to defend elections. They're going to use it to centralize power. We can use it to decentralize resistance. And then the last one is, they're going to use it to accelerate fear. We have to use it to scale hope, because really, around those dinner tables, in those bars, at those social events where people are going to decide how this thing goes, this can be a tool.
Yeah, no, I've been saying for a while now that the autocrats and the way they will use AI, they thrive on fear, on spreading fear.
Yeah.
And we have to build places that build hope and courage. that, in a lot of ways, I think we're in a race. All the stuff we're talking about, yes, it's social media and AI, but a lot of this is also, being present in the streets at the protests. In other words, it's all a race to build that community, to build that muscle, to be aware of what AI is doing and social networks are doing, but also to have those conversations that build our own networks, build our own resistance up to the algorithms, the bots, and the bad actors that are building AI, but also to be really visible out there, to give more people hope and courage that they should stand up to.
Trig, the one thing I want to call out, and I think it's your most recent one about how to kind of build a shared truth. And this is something I know we're already doing over at SAYS, but this is something that everyone can do now wherever they are. There's three things you can do. And I really liked how you broke this down. One was when you're posting or when you're replying to someone, you can make truth checkable. It's not just saying, no, you're wrong or no, that's fake. You have to explain why it's true and how you know it. Cite your sources and teach people. The line here is teach people to check, not react. Support humans over volume, which is, go find, elevate real sources. And then the one I think is really important here is actually the last line in number 3, which is flag the tactic, not just the lie. Say this is designed to confuse you and give people agency back. And this gets to a tactic, maybe the strongest tactic any campaign anywhere can do, which is empowering people to understand that their own agency has power. You mentioned the example earlier that Joe came up with against Mugabe with taking photos of election results and sharing them. There were people that believed they held the torch of democracy in their hands, and that's how we got people to do it. And making sure that people understand they're not powerless, whether it's not just a vote, it's everything you do up until a vote. That's when you can really start cooking with gas.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And I will say, I was, as you guys know, I was sitting on the other end when that was happening, and Joe had come up with that. I remember saying to people where I was sitting, like, where are we getting this? Who came up with this? This is genius. Right? I mean, it literally was genius. But that's kind of what it takes, right? Like, I mean, it takes people thinking outside the box and figuring out how can these tools be used in different ways. I mean, what Joe basically did is people have phones. The genius of it was people have phones and they can use that as their agency to fight back. Just brilliant.
No, but that's also what I'm saying is
it was just brilliant.
Yeah. Okay. That's thanks. But what
I mean, I'm come here to praise.
Joe's really good at taking a compliment.
Yeah, I know. I've clearly come here to praise Joe, but it really is true. I mean, I remember sitting there and saying to people like, where the hell are we getting it? This is incredible. But this is so smart. I wish I'd have thought of it for Belarus.
But that's that's what, like, one quick thing goes back to cell phones. It's like I said with Says Us. If you're on a network where you used an email to sign up, that's okay. I understand that. But there's nothing that stops a bot farm from creating 10,000 Google email accounts and putting 10,000 bots on the network. And now suddenly you're arguing with bots, not human beings, and with algorithms pushing stuff, and the bots are pushing it. And it's not just 10,000. And it can be from anywhere. I mean, for, Russia, whatever. Like, it's just the simple thing. It's amazing. It says us because we require a valid cell phone number. There's a reason. Bots don't own valid cell phones or cell phone accounts. And also, bot farm, it's too expensive for them to buy valid cell phone accounts and pay the monthly bills for their damn bots. So, I mean, that's just one step. But my point is, again, it's sort of there's technology. I'm trying to get to your point that there are things we can do with technology that can make this better. One of them is something that I've been working on with It Says Us with Alex and you. Thank you, Trippi, for being one of the early supporters and helping us. But the other thing now is, that's only one step we've got. People got to start, I think, a little bit of responsibility to, like you said, like not just be looking for the quick click reaction, but actually think through, where did this come from? I mean, we have to socialize that in the community so that we can actually galvanize, agreement around truth, facts, call out the things that are bullshit, but prove that they're bullshit, or at least proffer, facts and back material that proves it, or at least makes the case.
Well, and here's you'll find this interesting, Joe. One, and I think I maybe have said this to you offline, but one of the things that, as I've gone down this path of trying to figure out how can AI be used constructively to defend democracy so we don't make some of the same mistakes that were made, back in the early 2000s. One of the things that I discovered is, there's lots of Python package tools, for example, that people put out there, and they're open source, and they can be used for doing things like looking at comments, right? Like there's one that is out there that's made to look at like comments, like on Amazon. Somebody goes on and comments, right? Because the bot farms would have a vested interest in attacking Amazon and saying, Joe's Ginsu knife is the greatest knife since the original Ginsu, better. They can figure that out. What's interesting is about large language models and that package. I tried to deconstruct it with some guys on my team, figured out what they were doing. And the thing about bots and AI, what you start to discover, humans are complex, right? Like, the example I like to use is, and I did this, my daughter was visiting the University of Virginia, and I got on one of the AIs and I was like, tell me about Jefferson and the University of Virginia. And it told me all about how Thomas Jefferson, wanted to build a great university and his role in the Declaration of Independence. And then when we were a little further on the tour, we learned that he built it all with his slave labor. So I went on AI and asked about that. And then it told me all about Jefferson owning slaves. The thing is, what AI wasn't capable of doing is capturing the complexity of Thomas Jefferson. What these tools do when they look at bots, and this is something that more sites, social media sites could do, is AI bots aren't capable of capturing that cognitive dissonance, and they're very gray. They're very binary. Humans are not gray. Humans are many colors, and that can be seen. But there's disincentive for them to do it because it seeds their product and keeps people on it, fighting with the bots. And that's what they're trying to do. That's the business model.
Yeah, no, Alex and I have been talking about the binary thing. I mean, it's all again, social networks. It's like, dislike. It's follow, unfollow. It's red, blue. There's no nuance. There's no the nuance of human beings who can breathe, smell, taste, hear, and now it's all digitized, and the algorithms and AI are playing on that, and actually it's dumbing us down. So, Trippi, what are you working on? I mean, what makes you hopeful about this, or are you?
Well, I will tell you, like, I saw Mark Cuban had a tweet that kind of shaped my thinking on this long ago. And he made the point, and it really is true. There are certain moments in the history of mankind, the discovery of fire, the discovery of electricity, the discovery of the printing press, that were so big in shaping humanity moving forward that they kind of dwarf smaller incremental changes that make a big difference over time. Like, they're major shifting points, the Industrial Revolution. AI is one of those, right? And I think a lot about my grandpa Doc. My grandpa Doc immigrated when he was a small kid from Sweden. He ended up going to medical school. But he used to talk about, as a kid in Stockholm, Wisconsin, when electricity came, and his job when he was 13 was milking cows. And all the farmers were afraid of the electric lights, that the cows were going to stop giving milk because they wouldn't know day and night. And, he used to laugh about that because he would talk about then the discovery of penicillin, right, as a physician, And sometimes he'd get teary-eyed about the kids that he could have saved if he'd just had penicillin. And, I think about that a lot with AI, right? Because to Cuban's point, it is that big. It is that big for humanity. But if you also look at where those points have happened, um, there have been, the technologies have been used for the greater good of empowering mankind and also for the far worse piece and of destruction.
Yeah, social networks are a good example.
100%. And there's moments when I've been playing around with the AI where the AI will do things and I'll be like, wow, that's terrifying. Then there'll be other moments where I'm like, this could really empower humans to interact better and provide clarity, credibility, and community in ways that humans haven't had before. So, I think it remains to be seen. It all comes back to, I guess, in my travels around the world, and I say this to my daughters all the time, I believe 99.5% of people are inherently good. It's the 0.05% that I worry about. And it could go either way. But the good news is it's up to us, right? Like that's what gives me hope always.
No, and that's why what gives me hope is these protests. I mean, I really believe that the more we get people to join a pro-democracy movement that understands what AI algorithms, the narrative, what the autocrats are trying to do, and build the numbers up to educate people, to make sure that our friends, our family members, our coworkers understand what we're talking about and are on guard and are looking for better networks where we can be civil and figure out how to use AI for the greater good and not and to think back hard before we're just jumping in clickbait. There is that community's got to build, I think, and I think you see it building first with peaceful protests, but it's got to have a connective tissue. It's got to have its own social network. It's got to have its own information distribution hub, and it's got to have an AI product that we build together that's built for the greater good and not to divide people or that work against the narrative. We've got to start controlling the narrative and not have the autocrats use AI to control the narrative.
Well, I think that's true. All of that is 100% true. I think the other thing is AI can be used, and I've been working on some things to that end, and I'll have more to come on and talk with you guys about, end of the summer probably. But I think part of it is going to be, and AI can be incredibly powerful in this regard. I know it because we've been doing it. Incredibly powerful in helping people understand others, and for those who understand and are concerned about what's happening, we have to do a better job of recognizing that it isn't it that when we have conversations with people who are succumbing to sort of the autocratic fear and the autocratic messaging, that our conversations with them are not about us and not about trying to shame them into changing
Right,
their
exactly.
positions. It's about listening and asking probing questions and getting them to find within themselves why what they're embracing politically is antithetical to who they are as humans. And far too often people are falling into the trap, in part because of the way social media is, in part because technology has made us less good at communicating with each other. They're too narcissistic about how they're approaching it. AI can be incredibly powerful in helping people understand better how to go about that. Um, and that piece of it is important, right? Like, again, like all these tools, a hammer can be used to build houses for people who don't have shelter. A hammer can be used to hit somebody in the head. It's neither good nor bad, right? It's a tool. but that tool can be used. AI is a tool that has the potential to be very transformational if it's in the right hands. I will tell you the other thing about it that I think is pretty clear. The Elon Musk, the Mark Zuckerbergs, the big guys, what they really fear, I think, AI is going to be a $10 trillion industry at a minimum. I think what they really fear is themselves looking in the mirror and seeing themselves 20 years ago in a garage, that person might win the AI stakes. And so
No, it has to, because if it's one of them, we're in deep shit. So,
right. And but that is what they probably fear, right? They fear the guy in the garage.
So, guys, we're running short on time here. I don't know, Trippi, anything you want to leave us with before we sign off?
Yeah, I would just, one, I hope people will check out my Substack. I've started this thing, Searching for Hope. It's an ode to my first child, my first daughter, Vilta, which means hope in Lithuanian, who was stillborn at 38 weeks. In fact, she'd be 19 a week from today, or 6 days from today. And I'll write about that on the 23rd. But if you're looking for more like Outrage Machine, Searching for Hope is not where you want to go. If you're looking for practical things based on the experience that I've learned working around the world with fighting autocracy and some bottom line and things that you can do each day, I think it's a pretty good place for that. And it's free.
I think most of our listeners, I mean, I can go on a rant, but that's not the flavor of this show either.
No, it isn't.
And I urge people to check out Trippi's Substack, and we'll put it in the show notes. Thanks, Trippi, for coming on, and thanks everyone for listening to That Trippi Show. Check out Trippi's latest series on Substack. Like I said, we'll put a link to it in the show notes. And join us at says.us and help build a civil social network for real human beings. We'll be posting more over on our Substack at Trippi's Take. Alex and I are both wrote some pieces this week over the last few days, and we'll be doing more of it weekly. So check it out at joetrippi.substack.com. Thanks all. See you next week.